Right, good morning Hempsons. Welcome to the wonderful world of cost budgeting. I know you're not all going to like it, but it's something we just now have to do. Before we start the training, could I please remind you to switch off any mobile phones if you've got them on, and also if you've got any questions during the training to make a note of them and then maybe ask them at the very end. And the third thing is, please don't fall asleep. Try not to anyway. Right, as you know, you've all read the court rules now, and you do now have to start time recording if it's a litigation case against the various litigation stages. And to do this, we need you to use the stages during your time recording. So the purpose, as I say again, of this training is to go through with all new starters at Hempsons and anybody that wishes to attend this as a refresher to emphasise the importance of time recording against the appropriate stages. So that should the matter be cost budgeted, the time is already allocated to the various different stages, making the task of completing the new Precedent H form as easy as possible for both fee earners, i.e. the lawyers, and the cost team. The training will be in two parts. First part will be just going through the actual background.
So what was the for the fee earners and who is it? The
lawyers and costs team.
And the cost team. Thank you.
So the two different parts of the training will be, the first part will be just going through the background of cost budgeting, and then the second part will be how to apply that process to our case management system, DNA. There will be two different reports to help you with completing the Precedent H. The first one will be something that you can run off at the time the Precedent H is due, which will then have all the different stages with the amounts allocated to each of the stage that you can then place into your Precedent H form. The only columns that you will need to work out yourself then is future costs, because you'll already have the incurred costs. Once you've got the figures, you send the Precedent H off, and then you'll get figures back from the court, either authorising that budget or actually putting the budget up or down. There are two different key dates for completing the form. The first key date is the date you need to submit the cost budget by. That date will be set in the notice provided to you by the court, and the date will be within at least 28 days after the date when that notice was deemed to have been served on the claimant. If the court doesn't specify a date, you will need to make sure you work the date out yourself, and that date will be 7 clear days before the first case management conference. The second key date will be maybe a date where we need to submit a further cost management report, and that date will be specified by the court. A note for all of you to remember is that this is compulsory, so once we're given a key date by the court, you must file the budget at the court by that date. If you don't, then we lose all our costs other than the applicable court fees. So it is important that you do that. When it comes to the time recording, there are 10 different litigation stages, and they range from pre-action right through to the trial date. So when you start your time recording, think about what you're doing each time you're time recording, and then allocate the time to that particular stage. What we are getting at the moment is the cost team complaining that fee earners are not time recording against the appropriate stages. What happens then is, when we run off the report to assist the cost team in filling out the Precedent H form, is none of the columns have any figures in it. This means then that the cost team have to go through the files and work out the figures themselves from all the different attendance notes in the file. This is a really laborious job for the cost team and something they really shouldn't have to do at all. We've worked out the procedures from here in the IT team in order to assist you and also to assist the cost team in making it as easy as possible and less time consuming. When it comes to working out the budget at the very end, if as you're working through the matters you think that you're not going to be able to meet that budget, you do have to apply to the court for a new budget. Don't just carry on time recording over the budget, because we will lose whatever those costs are at the end. So an example would be if at the beginning of a matter you thought we required 6 expert reports, but then towards the middle of the claim you realise that after all, actually there's a little bit more to the matter and we're going to need 8 expert reports. That means probably an up in the budget of about £4,000. Don't just carry on working on your file without applying for a new budget. Fill out a new Precedent H form, get it agreed by the claimant's solicitors and the court. So I'm hoping that makes everything clear to all you lawyers in the importance of cost budgeting using the stages, so that it makes it easier for both you and the cost team. I think you all know a lot now about case management and how to add different processes to the case management system. So you start up a new workflow and then just make sure you enter your key date so that that deadline doesn't get missed. Key date will come up, remind you that it's due today. You print off your report, fill out the Precedent H form and submit it to the court. You then complete the figures on your workflow so that you're able to track the figures that you're incurring as against the budget that you've submitted to the court. Once the court comes back to you, you would then need to enter the figures that the court have authorised and track where you are with those figures as against the court's authorised figures. So if you've got any questions on that, now's the time to ask them. Anybody that's attending here now as a refresher, you might just want to leave like at this point. Any of you that are new starters, paralegals, maybe you wish to stay so that we can go through extra questions that you might have that the others might not have. With regards to the paralegals, which are newly qualified lawyers, the type of cases that you're working on, they're very low cost claims, so there are only 2 time recorded stages for you to worry about. So the only stages that you'll be time recording against is pre-action and expert reports, because those claims are only dealing with the first expert reports. Right, so then some of those stages now will become familiar. In front of you, paralegals and newly qualified or new starters, you'll have 4 sheets of paper. One is a copy of the Precedent H form, so a sample that I've completed for you. Attached to that is the report that I produced from my time recording in order to help me fill that out. So that's another sample. 3rd sheet paper is all the different stages of time recording and what types of work will be applied to each of those different stages. So I'm dealing with drafting a witness statement, so I time record against witness statements. I'm dealing with a defence, that goes into issue of pleadings. So that's a couple of samples. So there's a big list of those for you to keep. Maybe pin them on your pinboard so that when you're time recording, it's there for you to access and help you at all times. The fourth sheet of paper is a copy of the report that we look at to see where we are as against the budget. So there's 3 columns. The first column is the stages. The second column is our figures submitted to the court. And the third column is the cost you've incurred so far. And that report is run live at all time. You can run it 10 times a day if you want, and then the cost will be exact as to what you've racked up by that time. So again, if you want me to go through anything else in the future, just to help you a bit further, just ring me. Don't sit there struggling with anything. As I say in all the processes, just call me at the time and then we can sort things out. And again, if you need any further training on it, come back to me. Don't just leave it and make things hard again with the cost team. So that's about it. So other than any questions, it's the end of the training. And I'm pleased to say that none of you fell asleep. Well done, and thank you all for coming.